Now, buying a second-hand car is always going to carry some risk, but it's a risk that a lot of people try to offset by paying for a pre-purchase inspection. The big question is, can you really rely on these tests? Well, Tadhg Enright has been finding out.
For most of us, buying a car is the second biggest purchase we'll ever make after buying a home. It's a lot of money, so you want to make sure you're making the right decision.
But can you ever be sure? It depends on who you're buying from.
If you buy your used car from a dealer, well then the Sale of Goods Act applies. And that means you've got the same rights as if you bought a new car.
But if you're buying from a private seller, you don't have the same legal protection. It's a case of buyer beware.
The reality is most of us don't have the expertise to recognise a clocked odometer or a burnt-out gearbox.
So having the car professionally inspected before you buy makes sense, and there are lots of inspections to choose from. Niall Curran wanted peace of mind when he bought a used car, so he chose the AA.
We picked the AA because certainly from their website they gave us the impression that this was a hugely impressive and comprehensive test.
It talks about a comprehensive inspection of the car.
We needed peace of mind in our purchase, and the actual term peace of mind is used on their website.
Based on the AA inspection, Niall was confident there was no reason not to buy the car. He paid €5,750 to the seller and drove away, but he didn't get very far without a problem.
I'd driven less than 25 miles. A gearbox fault light appeared on the dashboard, and I stopped the car, turned off the engine, turned it back on, hoping that the fault would disappear, and lo and behold, it did. The next morning I got up and the gearbox fault appeared again.
So you talked to an automatic gearbox specialist, and what did he tell you?
His prognosis was that it certainly was a major fault and would cost me between €1,200 and €2,500 to repair.
Faced with a nasty bill, Niall contacted the AA asking why the major gearbox fault hadn't been detected. He queried whether the use of diagnostic equipment might have shown the problem. But the AA don't use diagnostic machines. It's in their terms and conditions. They say they're not designed to detect future faults and that neither the AA nor their rivals use them. But we found other providers who do offer diagnostics as part of their pre-purchase inspections. And our experts think a diagnostic scan would have been a big help to Niall.
Cars these days are highly complex. They're so complex that gearboxes and engines have computers that run them. And unless you're logging in and checking those computers for any kind of historical faults, you are not going to get an accurate picture of what that car is doing.
For me, the first thing I do is diagnostic machine onto it straight away.
Does a diagnostic machine not highlight the problems that there are, right now? I mean, surely if the diagnostic will only show up if there's a light on the dashboard or something like that.
No. Once the light comes on the car, even if you switch off the key, start it again, the light goes out. But the computer in the car will store the code. In fact, the computer we use, it will go through exactly when it happened and what mileage has happened at in the past. It might be 3 weeks ago. It'll still hold that fault.
When this gearbox was opened, 4 of the 7 clutches were actually burned out. That's something that happened over a period of driving, and that was something that was inherent in the gearbox at the time this inspection was carried out.
4 of the clutches were badly burnt in the transmission. One of them particularly bad, that the car was barely driving. The clutch didn't burn out in 30 miles. There was the issue, obviously, before he got the car.
And I have absolutely no doubt that if they did plug in and they did download the faults, that problem would easily have been seen.
The AA say no matter what the consumer show has been told by others, they stand by the position that diagnostic equipment would not have detected the future gearbox failure in this instance. Of course, no inspection can predict future faults, and the AA terms and conditions do limit the scope of their inspections. For example, they don't use diagnostic scanning. They inspect the underbody on a ramp only where one's available. They do not check oil leaks, they do not check exhaust emissions, and they can only identify faults reasonably capable of being found upon external visual consideration of the vehicle. All pre-purchase inspections come with terms and conditions, and it's important to read them.
If I'd looked at the terms and conditions, I wouldn't have purchased the product at all or the service at all from the AA.
Is it fair to make so many big promises in the advertising literature and then effectively take them away in the small print?
Well, I suppose that's really the nub of this. As a motorist, as an avid car fan, as a general member of the public, the AA represents a certain brand and a certain aspect of motoring. And I felt from what was said on the website, certainly does not match the terms and conditions. Yes, I've learned a very hard lesson.
The AA offered Niall a goodwill refund of €199. They say the inspection they did was the best available in Ireland.
And Tig joins me now. So, Tig, listening to what the AA say there, they're still saying it's the best available test. But what about the promises they make in their advertising? Any changes there?
Well, they have changed them. Now, they did tell us in their letter that the AA wouldn't be changing anything about the inspection itself, but we do know they have changed the way they advertise the service. If you look at the main web page for the pre-purchase inspection, you'll see a new line on that page saying the AA does not connect cars to diagnostic equipment as part of the inspection. That line was not there when Niall bought the inspection service himself, and it only appeared after he complained.
In fairness to the AA, though, we should say it was present in the terms and conditions previously. You know, you might say maybe Niall should have read the small print a little more closely.
Yeah, he certainly should, and indeed there's an awful lot in the small print, the terms and conditions, that he should have read. But, you know, service providers like the AA have to remember that you can't make all these big promises up front in the advertising material and then dilute them in the small print. And if you look at the variety of different inspection services out there, you'll see an awful lot of different exclusions. Some do and some don't offer diagnostics. Some stipulate that they won't look at automatic gearboxes like Niall has in his car. And some will only put the car up on a ramp or a lift to check the underbody if there is a ramp available, i.e. at the garage rather than a test carried out at the roadside. And some say very clearly up front that their test is not a guarantee that nothing will go wrong with the car in future.
What advice would you have for any consumer who is thinking of buying a second-hand car?
Well, you've got to be as careful with the inspection you choose as you are with the car you choose. Check to see what they will and won't check for. And remember, the most expensive things which could go wrong with a second-hand car, they're always going to be in either the engine or in the gearbox. And in our experts' view, the only way to really thoroughly check those things is to put the car up on a ramp or on a lift and have a good look at the underbody. An inspector who comes to you is not going to be able to do that. The only way he can do that is if you bring your car to his garage.
OK, well, listen, lots of advice there, Tig. Thank you very much indeed.